Why, hello everybody. My name is Prunk, and today we are gonna go over my perfect green-red deck list. It is a very strong mid-range build, and I have been topping in locals pretty consistently with these guys. I'm dominating Pixelborn right now. It's my current build is hanging around an 80% win ratio after about 10 games, and my old build was about a 70% win ratio. So I'm really confident in this deck. It is shocking to me that nobody is playing these two colors right now. I I understand why nobody would think to play these two because they just don't have that big hand presence and you're not really getting many draws out of it. But the amount of questing that you were able to do, and the amount of control that you technically have over the field, and the amount of like just destruction that is available to you with red green, I love this build. I may be a little biased because this was the starter deck I started with, so I really had to make sure I took this deck to the limit while we had a limited card pool, but I am so glad I did because I am in love with this build, and I want to show it off to you guys. So let's talk about the build. I'm going to go over the card by card first, and we'll go from there. We are going to be playing 4 copies of Tibbs. You can do with Duke as well. I'm going to squeeze this a little bit. There we go. So we're going to do 4 copies of Tibbs, 4 copies of Flynn. Just the early game presence with these guys are extremely strong. I don't like playing that many 1-drops anymore, and it comes down to after turn 1, I don't really want to see Flynn, and I do not really want to see Sergeant Tibbs. They are there to get me on curve, and hopefully I can mulligan into them if I need to, but otherwise I may just pass turn 1 and 2, and that other than just building up my ink, this is not the strong point of the deck. It is not an early game deck. But if you can get these guys on tempo, then you're in a good spot. But 4 copies of Tibbs, 4 copies of Flynn, 4 copies. I'm sorry, 3 copies of Gaston. He is just a great card to have to deal with when you're facing against Steel Amber. Just he outs Simba, he outs the Pirates, Captain Hook, he outs Prince Eric. He is just a phenomenal powerhouse of a card. I like when I know I'm facing Steel, I will try and get this, make sure this guy's in my hand because mulliganing for a Gaston is great against Steel and Amber. I'm playing 4 copies of Cat, 4 copies of Aladdin, 4 copies of Hans. This guy is so ridiculously good. It blows my mind that this vanilla is so powerful. But just 3 lore, 3/3. Steel has a hard time getting over him unless they're crashing in with like a Prince Eric or a Captain Hook. But he is such a good card. Do not underestimate this guy. I only have 2 of them in my real deck just because I've only been able to find 2 of them. But this guy is just phenomenal. I'm obsessed. I love Hans. From there, we got 4 Tinkerbell, 4 Pongo, and we're playing green stuff, so we're going to play 4 Kuzco, we're going to play 4 Mad Hatter. Where the deck list starts to kind of get a little weird and where some changes came into play is I'm starting to play 3 copies of Big Goofy. I actually played 4 at my locals this week just because I needed some cards to fill. And 3 copies of Goofy, I think, is fine. He was often ink, but when he wasn't, he was a 4 body that they could not out very easily. And he just kind of helped avoid, and it gave me some really strong trades. Just, again, against Steel, having the 4 health was just super strong. MVP of this deck is 100% Maui. The fact that he's only $7 right now is crazy disrespectful. This card is just so good and he is the key source of removal against the big purple green, which is currently the deck of the week. And you're running in, he's going to be my Cusco target to run into. So I'm often saving him if I know they're playing green, just to make sure I can run into Cusco. Otherwise, Dragonfire is usually my other main removal. But we're starting to play a lot of 5 drops, and that's kind of where this deck will shine. Is just when you get to turn 5, you have your 5 ink, you're playing 1 card at a time, and you're holding on to things that you're going to need to. It's really this deck is really high skill cap, I feel like, because you are not just dropping your stuff on board and passing. You need to play 1 card at a time. You need to milk out the resources and you need to kind of chip away. We're not going all in aggro. This is a mid-range control build more than anything. It's more mid-range or more control than it is aggro. From anyways though, so in my Pixelborn deck, I had 3 of these. I did not have a single one of this guy, and I'm excited to show you what my local build that I went undefeated with was. But John Silver, Alien Pirate, guy's crazy good. He has gone up, and I'm kicking myself that I did not pick him up when he was only $10. He's currently at about 20. I didn't have any of these for my locals, but I was hunting for them beforehand, and nobody was willing to part them because everyone's on green, purple right now. So this card has gone up. I'm hoping it goes back down, but $20 I just don't feel like it's fair for this guy, but it is what it is. And from there, I got 3 Aladdins. This card actually went. I finally really got to like use his effect twice actually in the same match. So uh, this is just help you steal lore from your opponent. It's super good. He is a boss monster. Otherwise, he's just Inkwell. Don't be afraid to ink him. The sad thing is, every time I had it in my opening hand, I mulliganed and I drew small Aladdin afterwards, and I was just like, oh well, that's annoying. Otherwise, we got 4 copies of Dragonfire. It's deck removal. Any red deck will play 4 copies, and any red deck will play Be Prepared. But this deck right here is so far at about an 80% win ratio on Pixelborn, and I can the fact that I have removal options, I have strong mid game, I can survive the early game really well against aggro, and I can just make a lot of favorable trades in my favor to really get control of the board. Typically by turn 5, I have outs, I have resources, I have what I need to have in order to start pushing for my game. But this is right here, red green. Again, don't sleep on this deck, guys. I don't know why anybody's not playing it. I know it's a little bit harder because you're not just drawing a bunch of stuff and you can get a dead hand if you go too aggressive. But that's why I'm playing a lot of the 5 cost cards to kind of force you to have to really pick and choose what cards you want. As far as some of the more, the non-inkables, I gotta fix this. Oop. Get back up top. All right, so our actual curve, you see it. It's like four red. I'm sorry, 4 1s. We got 7 2s, 7, or was it 4? Yeah, 8 3s, 12 4s, and we are playing a whopping 19 5 drops. Playing the emeralds, and we are only playing 12 non-inkable cards, so you're going to be inking the lower cost stuff as the game progresses. Typically speaking, if I had like 2 cats in my hand or something, Cheshire Cat was very likely going to get inked over a 5 drop because I knew that turn 5 was when I was turning the game around, and I just had to survive till then, so I wouldn't want to ink my big cards. And honestly, this, again, I can't keep stressing it. I love this deck. Try it out. See how you like it. But this is my perfect build. What I really want to show you is what I went undefeated with at my locals, and you're going to laugh a little bit. All right, so this is actually the deck list that I topped and went undefeated with at my locals yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. Um, I'm technically playing 3 Tivs and 1 Duke, but it's the same card. I'm only playing that just because I had all of them shiny, so I wanted to make sure that I got to show them off. So I'm playing 4 copies of Duke slash Tibbs. You playing 4 total of those guys, like combined. You don't need more. And I dropped a lot of the 1 drops in this build just because I wanted to make sure that I had a very strong late game. And it is important to say that I faced this week. So overall, my decks have gone in these locals. I've gone 5-1 total, and they've been a pretty similar build. But the first week I went in and I got crushed against Amber Steel, like my final game. And otherwise, that's the only deck I've actually lost against. But I wanted to make sure, I'm like, look, I am constantly playing off the top of my deck. What can I do to kind of change things? Let's get rid of some of these 1 costs, because after turn 1, again, I don't really want to see these guys. They are just ink after turn 1 to me. So I dropped down a lot of the low cost cards. I cut down my 2 drops and my 3 drops my 2 drops and my 1 drops by about 8 cards, and I put them all into 5 cost units, or 5 or cost or higher units. So you're going to get to see some weird cards in here because this is all I had at locals. But let's go back to it. 4 Weseltons, 4 Flynn's, 3 Gaston still, 4 Cheshires, 4 Aladdin, and I only had 2 Hans. So playing this guy at 2, he still was there and he did a good job, and he was there to help stop some flow of a lot of the steel characters, a lot of the amber characters, and steel stuff kind of still outs him. But Hans definitely slowed down the game. I think I could have been even better if I had 4 copies of this, and online it's proving that you need to play 4 copies of Hans. 4 Tinkerbell, 4 Pongo, and 1 copy of Jumba Jokiba. So this card was relevant. In one of my games against the Amber Steel player, they could not out this guy, and I ended up questing for 4 for game, and it literally won me. This card won me my game 3. So it was pretty nice. I love Jumba. He is going to be cut once I get back to the captain guys, but otherwise, yeah, this one of actually played pretty well. 4 copies Kuzco still, 4 Hatter, and we're playing 4 Goofies because again, I just needed to fill in some stuff. I do not have the full deck at the moment, but 4 copies of Goofy did work out really well. 4 copies of Maui, and I'm playing 1 more. There's Grothel. She did not show up. I just had an extra 1 drop, and since I didn't have John Silver, I just put Gothel in there to try her out. She never came up in any of my games. I did not draw her a single time. So, which was kind of a bummer because I'm curious. I want to know how well she would have been, if she is better than John Silver or not. But while this card character is exerted, opposing characters cannot quest, which means she has to be targeted or attacked or something and people will try and make her a priority. And against Amber decks, that was kind of my mindset. I feel like they would have to focus a lot of resources in on her. So throwing out two like cannons or a Tinkerbell or something. It's a problem card, but I never saw it, so I don't really know how good it is. We're playing 3 Aladdin, 4 Dragonfire, 4 Be Prepared, and 2 Shield of Virtues. So Shield of Virtue came in clutch against my Amber Steel player. Game was going pretty long, surprisingly enough, for an aggro deck. I ended up having 8 ink, and this card literally, my opponent is like, dude, that card just literally won you the game because I was able to keep my Mad Hatter out of combat range and just quest for like 6 out of nowhere. And this card did win me the game. I often have 5 on the field, or 5 ink, but when I didn't have that extra room to kind of maneuver, if I was drawing my dukes at late game and stuff, they were always going in the inkwell because just playing a 2/2 body isn't that great. Except I did actually have to drop 2 dukes and I was at 18 lore and I dropped 2 dukes and he couldn't out it, which was shocking. So that did win me a game. But most of the time I use everything else at below a 5 cost as ink after I hit my 5 ink well. Um, but Shield of Virtue was great, and it definitely won me a game. So I'm pretty happy with it. But this is my super bad undefeated deck list at my locals at the moment, and it felt good. I loved it a lot. When I say undefeated, I mean by matches. By the way, I lost. You can lose game ones or twos. That's my definition of it. I think of like, did you go match? I went 3-0 at a tournament. That's what I look at. But this is it, guys. I mean, like I think green red is so undervalued. I don't understand why it's not being played more. I see that purple green is the color of the week or the deck of the week, but I beat 2 different purple green players pretty easily just by playing red green, and that's just because I had removal options. One of the guys, he looked at his friend and he's like, dude, that deck's just better. I'm like, yeah, I think so. Like, because I practiced some purple green when I started topping just to see. I'm like, oh, am I missing something here? And it's good. And purple green is a good deck. This is better. I think the fact I went 2-0 against a purple green, and I went 2-1 with a purple green. And the only reason I lost my second game was because he had the nuts, and I didn't do anything till turn 3 on one of my games. So he just managed to out aggro me and won by turn 5. So this is my build, guys. I hope you like it. Hopefully this inspired you to try it out, try something a little different. Right now the meta is not solved. Amber Steel is still probably the best, most consistent deck, but I think this deck is a sleeper, and this rogue build has just been topping me at locals. I showed up. None of these people know me in any other game, and I'm starting to dominate. So I'm having a lot of fun. So if you do like this content, please like and subscribe. Hopefully I've earned your subscription. If you are going to play this deck, please let me know any tweaks or adjustments that you've been doing and that you're testing out. I would love to hear your feedback and see it, and let's make this the best deck we can. Hell, let's topple Amber Steel as far as the #1 deck. I want to see this get some top 4s or top 8s, and take care, y'all. Thank you so much.